Late light fades as she taps the river ice under spindrift. One hollow note hints at a hidden seam ahead. She inches across with the husky tight on leash. One jagged crack line could force a fast retreat. At the north bank lip, she listens for a shift. If it shears loose, the whole crossing is gone. Wind curls around the boulder. She hunts a lee pocket, but drifting snow can bury a trench fast. She probes the drift for a trench base. One hidden void could collapse when weight commits, no kidding. She pushes into the spruces for dry boughs. Losing the return line in spindrift would be a bad deal. Dead branches snap clean, but the husky's ears twitch. What new scent rides the wind right off the bat? Bundled boughs head back to camp. If they shatter in cold air, insulation will fall short tonight. She scrapes down to crust, marking a trench. One soft spot could turn into a cold sink before dark. She lays the first bough bed and hides tinder. Next comes fire, but will sparks actually catch today? She starts a low roof as dusk drops fast. One gust could peel it open before warmth ever arrives. Frosty boughs become her ceiling, but too much snow weight could crush the trench before night settles. A single rib branch braces the roof. If it snaps, the trench becomes an open freezer again. She seals only the seams. Too much weight collapses the roof. Too little leaves every draft biting. She carries tinder to the boulder's lee. If it's even slightly damp, the first sparks will die. Her hands build a tinder nest in the lee. The next strike decides whether cold wins another hour. Sparks flicker and die in her tinder. One gust of snow can smother the only chance at heat. She makes a tiny wind cave for tinder. The husky inches closer, waiting for the first real glow. A tiny ember blinks alive, then dims. One snow grain can erase minutes of work in a heartbeat. She stages fuel off snow and saves tinder. The next spark has to stick before true night falls. The ember finally holds under her hands. Now it must grow without a single snow grain killing it. A low flame finally clings to bark. One rush stick could smother it, and heat would vanish again. The flame steadies at last, but wind can still peel it away. She needs cold before true cold settles in. Fire holds behind the boulder, but the trench keeps refilling. One missed seam could bury the bed overnight. She carves a tiny ventlet. Too open invites snow. Too tight traps wet air that can freeze into trouble. Inside the trench, she builds a thicker bed. If moisture creeps in, insulation turns into a cold sponge. She raises a pad for the husky's paws. One damp layer can steal heat faster than wind ever could. She starts a mouth plug with a tiny gap. Seal too tight traps wet air. Too loose invites drifting snow. Breath fog becomes her gauge. The gap must vent without letting snow sift in and bury them by morning. Coals begin to form under the flame, and if they fail, the night becomes a long freeze with no second chance. Red coals finally bead under ash. If oxygen drops for a moment, the hard-won heat goes out, just like that. She banks the coals under ash and inches stones closer. One wrong move can smother the bell and end it. She tightens the door panel, but leaves a sliver to breathe. A full seal can turn damp air into ice inside. Frost sips down as she braces the roof. If it sags, snow weight can press the air right out of the trench. She slips out and seals the door again. In this wind, footprints vanish fast, and the camp line can disappear. She shapes stones into a reflector. If coals spread too thin, the glow weakens and the night wins inches. She carries a warmed stone toward the trench. If it sinks into powder, that heat is gone for nothing. A warm stone goes into the trench, but it must not melt the bed. Moisture here can freeze into misery. She tunes the breathing slit by feel. The wrong gap invites snow, but no gap traps wet air to freeze. Inside the trench, heat is fragile. One shift in wind can smother coals or pack snow against the door. She tunes the gap by touch. Too tight traps wet air, too loose invites drift to bury the trench by dawn. She reseals the trench and moves for coals. In this wind, the camp line disappears as fast as a breath. The coals still live under ash, and she prepares a carry bundle, because one lost coal can mean starting from zero. She caps the coals under ash to carry them. Too much air and it flares, too little and it dies on the walk. She walks coals through the wind like a fragile torch. If they die, the next fire may cost hours she doesn't have. She brings coals inside as a slow heat source, and if the pit breathes wrong, smoke billows or the coals die silent. A coal pit inside the trench is risky. Too much air flares, too little, and the glow dies without warning. She opens the slit a fraction and watches fog flow out. The coal glow must breathe without turning the trench into a trap. She stages tinder under cover for a quick restart. If the coal pit fades, this is the only fast backup left. Coals glow under ash as the wind presses the door. Everything depends on that thin gap staying just right. In the dark trench, fog tells the truth, and if the slit closes, wet air freezes fast and heat disappears with it. She wakes the coals under ash, but the door begins to flex. One drift surge can pack the slit shut in minutes. Tinder stays dry only if guarded. A few drifting grains can melt, soak fibers, and steal the next restart chance. She feels the roof flex and wedges a brace. If snow weight shifts, the trench could press down and steal all air at once. The slit starts to pack shut, and she clears it fast. When airflow stops, frost turns wet air into ice within minutes. The coal pit stays alive, but it must stay calm. A flare wastes fuel, and smoke can build where there's nowhere to run. She slips out between gusts to save the outside coals. If those die, the next restart may be impossible in this wind. The outside coals dimmed under ash, but she wakes them gently. A flare wastes fuel and invites wind to steal it back. She banks the outside coals and brings another warmed stone. Small heat matters when the air tries to steal everything all night. Another warmed stone joins the trench, while coals glow under ash, and the only job now is keeping drift from sealing the slit shut. Pre-dawn starts to creep in, but the trench still breathes. If the slit seals, frost can lock everything shut fast. A gust tries to seal the slit with snow, and she clears it fast, and the trench only works while it can breathe. She lifts ash to check the glow, then covers it again. The pit must stay alive without turning into smoke under the roof. Drift piles against the door until it locks. She pushes it back before the steam freezes, and the exit disappears for good. Pre-dawn light is barely there, but she still has to check the outside coals. If those die, the day starts with panic. Outside coals still live. Barely she feeds one thin stick, since big flames just invite the wind. She banks the coals and walks back with a warmed stone. In this cold, tiny heat transfers are what keep the body working. She resets the door and checks the coal pit glow. Pre-dawn is near, but one sealed slit can still turn this shelter into a freezer. She checks tinder again as the light shifts. The storm is still here, and a single damp bundle can erase the whole morning. Pre-dawn finally shows, but nothing is safe yet, and as long as that slit stays open, the trench can keep fighting the cold. Morning creeps in, but she doesn't relax. The trench still depends on that thin slit breathing in the wind. She peeks at the morning and shuts it back out. Even now, one ice slit can trap wet air and kill heat fast. She wakes the coal pit for morning, feeding it a pinch of dry fiber, and one careless flare could fill the trench with smoke. She coaxes the ember with a guided draft, not a breath. Too much air and it flares, too little and it dies before morning work begins. The ember becomes a tiny flame, and she feeds it thin sticks. It's the first real warmth since night, but smoke can still ruin everything. She lifts the flame like a fragile seed, because carrying fire in this wind is harder than lighting it in the first place.
She walks the flame into the lee like carrying life itself. One gust can snuff it and force another long restart.
The carried flame finally meets the banked coal. Now the morning fire can grow without wasting precious tinder all over again.
Morning light shows new drift lines around the trench, and she aims the fire's heat toward them. The shelter can't stay buried.
She studies the drift-softened entrance and makes the morning call. Dig it out now, or the trench will slowly disappear under snow. Morning gives light, not safety, if she heads straight for the buried entrance, because a shelter that can't breathe becomes a trap again. She breaks the crust and clears the rim. A thin shell of ice can seal a shelter as effectively as a wall of snow. She tests door and builds a berm, and the wind will keep trying to pack the seam, and today she has to stay ahead of it. With the entrance cleared, she turns to the fire. A coal base is the only way to work without restarting from scratch every hour. She checks the cash like it's currency. Dry fiber is worth more than food out here, because it buys fire when the wind turns cruel again. She warms her hands for seconds, not comfort. In this cold, a stiff glove can turn a simple task into a dangerous delay. With heat stable, she looks for the next supply. The storm took drift, and now the day will take wood, if she can find it dry enough. Clean snap means dry fuel. She bundles twigs fast in the lee, banking coals for the long night. Twigs feed the coal core, not flames. She keeps heat low, watching the berm as drift slows again. The fire finally holds as a coal bank, but the next choice is dangerous. Leave camp for supplies, or stay and risk running short again. She caps the coal bank before leaving, and if the fire dies while she's gone, the camp goes cold and the day turns ugly fast. She checks the slit and berm one last time, then heads for the creek. Water is the next chain link, and every step away from the fire is a gamble. She pries where ice layers meet. One bad spot can crack wide fast. The creek gives, but demands respect. Dark water finally shows, and she scoops it fast. In this wind, a hole can freeze over again before a second chance arrives. She caps the hole and marks it, then hauls water back. Even by day, wind can erase tracks fast. The coal bank stayed alive. Barely. She feeds one thicker stick and checks the berm line again. The camp is stable, but only because every small piece still works together. For once it feels calm. Water warms, coals hold, and the husky rests, small proof against the cold. Water stays liquid in the lee. She rests a moment but keeps watch. Storms only give short windows. The camp holds its shape. Fire, shelter, and water set. Snow still moves, but the night is behind them.